Don Meredith had a lazy twang in his voice and a lively zing in his arm. This native Texan was the quintessential good old boy.
He was going to have a good time, and the game to him was supposed to be fun, and he played it just that way. He loved the game, and he loved to compete.
Dandy Don saw himself as an entertainer, but he rarely followed the script. With a well-honed flair for improvisation, he played the role of a risk-taking renegade. During a decade that saw pro football become more regimented and systematized, Meredith's playing style was defined by the gamble rather than the game plan. But while his methods were unorthodox, he helped the Cowboys become one of the 60s most successful teams. Yet his devil-may-care spirit often produced hellish consequences. And he wrangled the rigid sensibilities of a head coach who believed that discipline was the key to football excellence.
Our personalities were different, and he had a different outlook in football. He enjoyed football. You see him on television today, and that's the way he played football. He wanted to enjoy. He wanted to have a good time doing it. And I didn't feel like that's what made great quarterbacks.
We're in the biggest game of our life against the Green Bay Packers, the championship game in 1966. First time we'd ever been in the playoffs. And I remember the day of the game, we come to a team meeting, and I walk into the meeting, and everybody said, "Gosh, have you seen Don?" I said, "No, what's that?" He said he was walking through a store shopping, and he walked through a plate glass window and said his face is all cut up, and, you know, he won't be able to play. Well, I mean, I was devastated. I mean, here we were getting ready to play the championship game, you know, and our quarterback is hurt. And, you know, you would see him up in the front of the room, and, he'd kind of show you his face, and, boy, it was a tremendous scar on his face, you know, and you could see the stitches and everything. And all of a sudden, Meredith stood up and just took this scar and just peeled it off. And Bert, who was a friend of his, had this, you know, Hollywood makeup artist make it up. And I'll tell you, it was so realistic. And when he pulled it off, I said, "Meredith, you son of a gun." He may have not have paid the price, particularly from a coaching standpoint, that you wanted to prepare for that game, you know, that you would like for him to, but he could go out and he played, and he could play with the best of them. And he was a tremendously courageous athlete.
We were playing the Redskins, and I remember we had 59 seconds left to go and no timeouts, and we had 95 yards to go for a score, and we had to score a touchdown to win the game. And Don was beaten up worse that day than I think I've ever seen any athlete take punishment like this in one game. The Redskins were blitzing him practically every play, and one of his ribs broke, punctured a lung, and subsequently after the game, his lungs started filling up with fluid, and he almost died on the flight back. While we're in the game, I remember coming back towards the huddle, and he's just lying down there, and I said, "Don, Jesus, you know, somebody is calling somebody to come carry him off the field." And he just looked up at me, he said, "Just get me to my feet." It's the only word he said. And I don't know why, but I knew we were going to win the game. Right then and right there, I knew we were going to win.
Intense physical pain always brought out the hard-bitten competitor in the quarterback with the easygoing demeanor.
Don Meredith was the toughest quarterback that I've ever seen. Now, you talk about people being hurt and overcoming it and playing the games. Don Meredith stood alone in that position as a quarterback.
But Cowboy fans overlooked Meredith's fearlessness and instead dwelled on his failures. Critical mistakes and crucial contests turned this happy-go-lucky quarterback into a sad figure, a jester, showered with jeers.
After we had lost badly to Cleveland, 38-19 or something, but it was worse than the score indicated. We went into this restaurant, and somebody noticed Don and I, and they started booing him. And the people sat there in this restaurant and stood up and booed him until we left.
He'd had a broken rib that punctured a lung, and he had pneumonia, and he'd lost 15 pounds, been in the hospital about a week, got out of bed, went to Cleveland, played in the game. We lost the game. Defense played lousy, and Meredith really didn't have a lot to do with the loss, but the next day he took all the heat in the paper.
Although fans rejected him, Meredith's teammates found his fun-loving spirit a rallying point for 9 seasons.
He was so loose and so carefree that it was so much fun to be around. And yet when the game rolled around, he was as competitive as anybody you've ever seen.
One of the most entertaining players to emerge from the sensational 60s, Don Meredith may never have won the big one. But his courage won him a lasting place in the Cowboys' Ring of Honor.